permanently mostly with people, and because she's out so much, I didn't want to have, been unable to cope when she's gone so very often. So that's just to learn more. But what my business is I'm an art appraiser. You may have seen me on Arizona Quickbooks PDS program for a couple of years, and then I'm an art appraiser. So that's.
Do you know Peter Held?
Yes, I encourage Peter to become an art appraiser.
He's a great guy.
He's a wonderful.
Yes, he is, very much.
I'm sure he does great work.
He does.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah, no, I was very, he always helped everyone, and he got it, and he has my same background. We both, going into appraising, it helps to have been an artist and to use everything so that you have an understanding of materials, not from an art history standpoint.
Yeah, so our firm actually started back, my firm is 52 years old now. I look great. I know I have a great plastic surgeon. Fantastic. My father started the firm back in 1965 with teachers and artists. So we have a lot of local artists. Woody Payne was a client of ours for many years. Don Schoenberger we have a whole bunch of stuff from him. All these local artists that have been around here for a long time.
So you have those collections.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Well, because the teachers got paid money, so they could pay us with money, and the artists had no money, so they could pay us in art. So yes, if you ever come to my Tempe office, you'll see a lot of great local art from great local artists, most of whom are fairly retired at this point. But it's definitely we're very in tune with the culture of Tempe. We've been there. My father's an original owner in the Lakes, which is down on McClintock and Baseline. Was the first subdivision that they built south of Baseline. That was the southern tip of Tempe back then. Now, of course, it goes all the way down to the reservation. So what we're here today is to get a grasp on the basics of QuickBooks. Now, I'm really, really pleased to see that nobody here said, well, I'm using QuickBooks Online. So that means that you read the description of the class, so thank you. I'm also very pleased to see that nobody here has QuickBooks for Mac. At least at this point, because what we're going to be doing is QuickBooks for desktop. Now, I want to just cover a couple pieces of that, because there's lots of different versions of QuickBooks, and I want you to have a feeling that you got the right one. First of all, we have a couple different platforms. We have QuickBooks for PC, what we call now we call it QBDT, QuickBooks Desktop. We have QuickBooks for Mac, and we have QuickBooks Online. Now, we don't tend to recommend QuickBooks for Mac. Give me just a second. Okay, no, you guys have Mac. So we don't tend to recommend QuickBooks for Mac. And the reason why is because we lose some of the functionality that makes QuickBooks the #1 consumer accounting product. And that is what's called the accountant's copy. Now, what happens with the accountant's copy is when you get to February, okay, and you're ready to give your accountant the stuff from the past year, you can create an accountant's copy, and your accountant can make changes for everything prior to it's called a dividing date, and you get to continue doing your work for everything after the dividing date. You see, in old systems, in old legacy systems, what would happen is you would create a backup, okay? So you would create a backup of your file. You would give it to the accountant would take a week or 2 weeks or something to work on it, and they would back it up from their system and give it back to you, and then you could work again. Okay, there is none of that in QuickBooks Desktop. Okay, you have the dividing date, the accountant makes their changes are then packaged up into a nice, neat file, imported in your system, and you match. Okay, that's what makes QuickBooks Desktop awesome, and that's why it's at like a 95% market share, okay, because you don't have to stop doing what you do just because your accountant is doing their work. Now, I will say there are still a few lagging accountants that don't use the accountant's transfer file functionality. So I'll tell you what those kinds of accountants do, okay? What those accountants do is they will take your backup, they make all their changes in their system, then if you kept working, they'd have to go back and make all the same exact changes in your system. And guess what you pay for? The same work twice. Okay? Part of the charm of our industry is that accountants tend to find a way to do things, and that's pretty much how they do them for the next 40 years of their life. If you have an accountant that hasn't changed and doesn't use accountant's transfer copy and doesn't use QuickBooks to its fullest extent, that person may be nice and charming, but they're costing you money. Okay? So you want to look for an accountant that is a QuickBooks Pro Advisor. So let me tell you about the Pro Advisor program. The Pro Advisor is an incredibly smart way for Intuit to suck money out of their accountants' pockets. Okay? Okay, all right, fine. You think I was being really serious. Okay, well, you'll end up picking up my sense of humor. It's very bad, but you'll be able to see how bad. So what the Pro Advisor program is, it's an affiliate program. So we sign up as Pro Advisors, we get discounts, we get resources, we get training materials, and we can get listed on their website. We get better support, faster support, free support for ourselves and for our clients. Along with all of that, they give us 16 hours of training per year in order to go through their certification process. So being a Pro Advisor is very, very important, and having a Pro Advisor for an account is also very important. Now, your particular, like your main tax preparer, doesn't necessarily have to be the Pro Advisor, but they should have somebody on staff. Okay, that's really, a very important piece of the puzzle. Okay, so QuickBooks for Mac, going back to our versions, does not have the accountant's transfer capability. So what we tend to recommend is to use QuickBooks Desktop in a emulated environment, like using software like Parallels. So that's where you have your Macintosh software, or some people who might be on the younger end don't realize that Mac stands for Macintosh. That's okay. And Macintosh is a type of Apple, so that's where that comes in, but nobody really thinks about it. Okay, so with the Mac, you can basically put a Windows backend on it and then run it on the Windows backend. So that's going to give you your functionality with the accountant's transfer copy.
I don't know if you're still getting to this, but what's the biggest difference, and why wouldn't you recommend the online?
We're going to get there in just a moment. Okay, so that's how we recommend that you work on a Mac with the PC version. Now, with the PC version, you have several different choices. We have a Pro, a Premier, and Enterprise. But Aaron, why isn't there a Basic? Well, there used to be a Basic, and there used to be something called Simple Start, and they got rid of it. Pro is the one that is the version that most of you guys will want. Premier is the same thing as Pro, but with some more features based on your particular industry. So there's a Premier that has that's retail. There's a Premier that's manufacturing and wholesale, a Premier that's professional services, nonprofit, and contracting. Okay. So what each of those has is it's the exact same backbone. It's the exact same thing that you're going to see here. It just has more reports and some additional features. So you'd have to see. The price difference is about $150 a license. Okay. Then there is Enterprise. Enterprise is something that looks exactly like Pro, but its back end is able to handle an enterprise class of business. That means that really big businesses. Okay. And the biggest difference is that your Pro and your Premier versions can handle about 5 simultaneous users. The Enterprise can handle up to 20 simultaneous users. The Pro and the Premier let you segment duties only by who has the control over accounts payable, accounts receivable, banking, and reports. Enterprise allows you to say, this person can write a check but not print it. This person can print a check but not edit a check. This person can print purchase order. So it allows you to. Does anybody else here have?
When that
Not for you today. I'm going to point out things that you might want to look at for purposes are obsessed with controls. At least auditing accountants are obsessed with controls. I'm a tax guy, so it's a little different. But auditing accountants are obsessed with controls, and that's who has permission to do what. Okay. Now let's talk about QuickBooks Online, unless you have something.
Yes, if I have two different, like I have the real estate, I have the camera, and my husband will, when he gets back.
So, yes, QuickBooks is